Hey, Dr. Ray here, founder of the Learning Liaisons, and welcome. Welcome to our Wednesday evening math sessions featuring our math specialist and your math specialist, Amy Sink. In the next hour, Amy has put together a sample set of approximately 10 practice questions that run the gamut from kindergarten levels all the way through 12th grade high school math. Now, I know you are attending here, watching this, and you're like, well, I'm doing elementary in Texas, or I'm doing elementary in Praxis, or I'm doing high school math in Florida, or middle school math in Texas. And what's going on here, right? So we're doing these sessions to help you guys out and provide you with different ways to look at problems and to build that confidence. Because here at the Learning Liaisons, one of our major objectives is to clear up the testing confusion, give you the support you deserve in order to nail your exam and be done with it. So our focus is on math. Now, are we going to be just focusing on high school math the whole hour or elementary? No, we've got a mixture here. Now, Amy's going to go through a bunch of problems. You're going to have the opportunity to download those as a PDF. So when Amy starts, just pay attention to the screen. We're going to have a message there for you so you can download the PDF in case we don't get to all the problems or want to practice on your own. She's going to do her best to go across all different grade levels. If you have a question, you feel free to ask Amy your question as well. We're teachers here too, so we can multitask. Our job is to make sure that we give you what you need to be successful. But if you're like, dang it, I didn't have any questions this week, don't worry. We'll be here next Wednesday night as well. So bring those questions with you if you want, and you could ask Amy away. Because here at the Learning Liaisons, we pride ourselves in providing you guys the support you need to pass your exam. So whether you're our Florida teachers here with our FTCE exams, our national exam, Praxis peeps, big shout out to you guys out there too. And especially our newcomers to the Learning Liaisons brand, TExES Prep. So whether you're elementary, middle school, and high school, we've got your back. So sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, get ready to learn some math, and stay tuned for the end because I'm going to jump back on to close this out. And I got a special surprise for you guys who really want to get the real deal prep and get everything you need to be successful and practice, clear up that confusion, and pass your certification exam on the next attempt. So, welcome to the Learning Liaisons community. Always remember, it's when you pass, not if you pass. So without further ado, let's turn it over to the reason why you're here, Amy. You with us, Amy? Let's get going.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday Night Math Night. Like Dr. A said, I am Amy Sink, and I am one of the math specialists here at the Learning Liaisons. Priya is the other one, and we just love spending our Wednesday nights with you. Most of the time it's me, but I just love when she gets the chance to spend Wednesday nights with you and just work on math problems. So, hey, Chris. Hey, Hope. Hey, Denise. Oh, it's so good to see familiar faces. I love doing math night with familiar faces. Makes me so happy. I actually sat through a math training today and just loved every second of it. Just soaked it all up because it's just my jam. So, and my goal is to make it just a little bit more of your jam if it's not. My job here is to just make it a little bit easier, a little bit easier to understand, make it a little bit clearer for you because these tests are not easy. So without further ado, I always like to start with kind of a get to know you because it helps me know who's in the room. So in the comment box, let me know where you're from, what test are you prepping for, and get to know you question this week is going to be, I always do a get to know you question just because it's fun. What's the get to know? Do you have any pets at home? I don't think we've done that one before. I have a Great Dane, and I only ask that question because the Great Dane is in here with me because it's thundering and storming outside right now, and he is 160 pounds of pure, like, terrified. He is terrified of thunderstorms, so he is currently hiding in the back right now. So, do you have any pets at home? Is the get to know you question this week. But where are you from and what test are you prepping for are the more important questions because it helps me guide our conversation tonight. The questions are set for tonight. However, if you have any specific questions that you want to see me go over or specific concepts, I always put like a little next week here. And as people ask me questions or ask me to go over certain concepts in the upcoming weeks, I always add them to my list. And I guess that's it. So let's go ahead and get started with problem number 1. 4 fur babies. I love that. 2 dogs and 2 cats. I love it. And I am just going to apologize right now. If we lose power and we lose internet and I just all of a sudden freeze and disappear, you know why. Because my lights just flickered. And so I am worried that we are going to lose power while we're sitting here doing math night. So if that happens, I'm just going to say, have a great week, because I can't control if we lose power. Hey, Marissa, GK Math, awesome, fantastic. Denise, you're Turkish from Istanbul, but you live in Fort Lauderdale. I love that. You're about 3 hours south of me. I live in Central Florida. No pets at home, but you want to adopt. I love that. All right. Problem number 1. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so that you can see this. What is the radius of the circle that is represented by the equation below? X squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 8y equals 20. So this problem is asking us for the radius of the circle. And I have done this type of problem recently, but this is one that everybody always struggles with. Hope, you have 3 cats, a snake, and a dog. Ooh, what kind of snake? I am not a reptile person. I will say that. Not a reptile person myself. But that's okay. We don't all have to be reptile people. There are a couple people at my school that love reptiles. They have reptiles as class pets. Hi, Lizeth from Fort Worth. Fantastic. All right. I am getting distracted today. I don't know what that, maybe it's because I sat in training all day and I just want to talk to people. Radius of the circle. So when we're looking for the radius of the circle, we are looking for that line segment that goes from the center of the circle to the outside. So if I were to draw a circle right here for us, the radius of the circle would be from the center extending out to the outside of the circle. If you don't know that and you have to solve this problem, you have a lot of studying to do. But like I said, I always like to take every single problem and make at least one piece of it relative to everybody. So while this is a 6 through 12 problem, elementary people need to know what a circle is, know what a radius is, right? So I like to at least give those definitions so we can all get something out of every problem. So the formula or the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where r is your radius and h comma k is your center. Well, the problem is this is not set up in x minus h squared, y minus k squared equals r squared format. How am I going to get it into that format? I'm going to have to use completing the square twice to get it into this format. Because by completing the square, it's going to allow me to get the x piece like this and the y piece like this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the x's together and the y's together. Then I'm going to complete the square on this section and on this section separately, because I need to get a binomial squared to figure out the center of this circle so that I can figure out the remainder of that radius. So while I really don't need the center, I need the radius. In order to get the radius, I have to put it into that equation of a circle format. So completing the square, I'm going to create a little list for us. Step number 1. Add b divided by 2 squared to both sides, where b is that second term in your standard form. So this is going to be a, this is going to be b, this is going to be a, and this is going to be b, because we're thinking about what it would look like in standard form. So that said, I'm going to have x squared plus 6x plus blank plus y squared minus 8y plus blank equals 20 plus blank plus blank. Where did I get all those blanks? Well, the plus blank is the b divided by 2 squared value. Because what I'm trying to do is get this into a perfect square trinomial. Whatever I add to one side of the equation, I have to add to the other side. Whatever I add to one side of the equation, I have to add to the other. So if I'm going to add two different left, then I have to add two different values to the right. So b divided by 2 squared is 6 divided by 2 squared. And negative 8 divided by 2 squared. Now, what is 6 divided by 2 squared? 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I'm adding 9 over here. And what is negative 8 divided by 2? Negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. So I'm adding 9 and 16 over here on this side, right? Now, by doing that, what I've just done is gotten this into a perfect square trinomial, which means I can now factor that, but I don't need to factor it because I know that step 2 in my complete the square is factor it. But when I factor it, because I've done enough of these problems, I know that this is going to become x plus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals, pulling out my handy dandy calculator, 45. Where did I get the 3 and the negative 4? From right here. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. The b divided by 2 piece only is going to turn into what your factor is when you factor it. Now, if I took x plus 3 and multiplied it times x plus 3, I would get that. And if I took y minus 4 times y minus 4, I'd get that. All I'm doing is reformatting this. I didn't do anything else to it. Now I have my equation of a circle. What is the radius? 45 squared is the radius, right? So r squared equals 45 is the radius. So if r squared equals 45 is my radius value, if I square root both sides, it'll give me my radius. And when I square root 45, kind of sliding back into something that everybody needs to know how to do, I need to factor tree 45. 45 is the same thing as 5 times 9. 9 is the same thing as 3 times 3. So this becomes 3 square roots of 5, which is D. Any questions about that? All right, let's move on to problem 2. If you have questions throughout today, please don't hesitate to drop them in that comment box. And as always, if you're thinking as we're sitting here solving problems, ooh, man, I really wish she would go over whatever, let me know and I will add it to my next week list. Problem number 2. This is a GK 5th, 6th, 7th grade problem all day long. So this problem is perfect for everybody. And I just dropped my pencil. At a store, the retail price of a bike is $215. And the retail price of a helmet is $45. Today, the store is offering a 30% discount on a helmet when a bike is purchased at the retail price. What is the total cost of a bike and a helmet at this promotional price. So a little bit about percents, decimals, and fractions. Percents, decimals, and fractions are all in the same family, okay? I can convert a percent into a decimal into a fraction. I can convert a fraction into a decimal into a percent. I can convert a decimal into a percent into a fraction, right? So the store is offering a 30% discount. I'm going to take that percent and convert it into a decimal so that I can either long multiply it with my pencil and paper, or I can plug that baby into a calculator. So at a store, the bike is $215 and the helmet is $45. And the question says, what is the total cost of a bike and a helmet at the promotional price? What is the promotional price? We are offering a 30% discount on a helmet when the bike is full price. So I'm going to add the bike to the sale helmet, and that's going to give me my answer. This is really how I solve problems in real life. I need to write it out so that I know I'm not making an error, because these kinds of problems, people often make silly errors because they're not taking the time to just sit and take that extra 10 seconds to process. We ain't got all day. You and I both know that these tests are timed. However, we do have enough time to create a quick plan. So this is my quick plan. Now I have to figure out what the sale price of the helmet is. Got two options. I can, one, multiply 45 times 0.3, and that's going to give me something, right? And then I'm going to take 45 and subtract that something to get the sale price, because I need to take 30% off of my actual price. Or option number two, I'm going to change where I am so that you can see this part. I can multiply 45 times 0.7 and be done. Why? Because I'm either taking 30% off of my original, or I'm paying 70%, right? It's A or B. It doesn't matter which way you like better. Quite frankly, I use this method just because that's easier for me. It's 2 steps, I know. For some of you, you're like, that doesn't make sense, Amy. Sometimes I don't do the most efficient way because it's just not comfortable for me. But I want to show you and be honest with you about that, because I want you to see we solve problems differently. So I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to multiply 45 times 0.3, and that gives me 13.5. What does that number represent? That represents the discount, not what I'm paying. So then I'm going to plug that number into here to get my sale price. 45 minus 13.5 gives me 31.5. Now I'm going to multiply 45 times 0.7. Imagine that. I get the same answer, because what I'm doing is paying 70% of the original price. So 215 plus 31.5 gives us $246.50, which is B. Good job, Denise. All right, let's move on to problem 3. Recently, a survey was conducted to find out how many people have traveled to the beach, traveled to the mountains, or traveled to both the beach and the mountains. The results show that 54% of the people have traveled to the beach, and 32% have traveled to the mountains, but 14% traveled to both the beach and the mountains. What percent of the people surveyed have not traveled to the beach or the mountains? This is a really, really interesting question. I'm gonna let you process that for a minute while I take a sip of water. This is a really interesting question, and here's why. So many of us, in fact, the first time I solved a problem like this is how I did it too. 54% traveled to the beach. 32% traveled to the mountains. 14% traveled to both. So this must be neither. Let's add them all up. 54 plus 32 plus 14 equals 100%, which means that 0% of the people surveyed have not traveled to the beach or the mountains. But that is not accurate. I want you to consider this. I want you to consider this. Familiar? It's a Venn diagram with beach over here and mountains over here, and nothing is out here, right? 54% of the people have traveled to the beach. It doesn't say that 54 have traveled only to the beach. 54% have traveled to the beach. 32% have traveled to the mountains. But 14% traveled to both. So if I know that this circle right here has to be 54%, and I know that this circle right here has to be 32%, that means that all of the blue has to equal 54, which means something plus 14 has to equal 54. Well, 54 minus 14 is 40. That means that 40% of people, and I'm actually going to do that in black, 40% of people only traveled to the beach because 14% traveled to both, and 40 plus 14 equals 54. I'm going to do that same process over here. 32% traveled to the mountains. However, 14% traveled to both. So 32 minus 14 is 18. So 18% traveled to only the mountains because 34% of people went to the mountains and 54% of people went to the beach. It's just that 14 overlaps. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 40 plus 14 plus 18 to figure out what percent of people didn't do any of it. 40 plus 14 plus 18. $72, which means 28% of the people surveyed didn't go to either, which is actually D. How many of you have your minds right now? I'm telling you, the first time I solved a problem like this, I was mind blown. And it totally makes sense. Like, the whole process makes sense. But I was like, whoa, I cannot believe that's the direction that problem just went, right? All right. If you have any questions, let me know. That problem kind of like made my brain go the first time I solved it too. But no questions. I'm going to move on to problem 4. If you don't squeeze your question in before I go on to the next question, I always go backwards to the previous problem, so no worries. Like I said, start thinking about what you want to see me go over in the upcoming weeks. Problem number, we're going to skip 4 for today. Problem number 5. Solve for x. 9x plus 4 divided by 3 equals 12x plus 21. So in order to solve this problem, and this is, again, a great middle of the road, GK, Praxis core, but also like everybody kind of needs to understand PEMDAS, but like my high school people need to understand how to take this one step further. So this is a great question for everybody. Excuse me. So in order to solve this problem, I'm trying to solve for x, which means I need to get all of the x's on the same side of the problem. In order to do that, I need to isolate my x's. The problem is I have x values in the numerator of my fraction, and then I have x values on the other side of my equal sign. Well, how do I get those x values out of numerator jail? How do I get them out of the numerator? Well, in order for me to do that, I need to get rid of the denominator, right? So I need to go ahead and multiply both sides by a value of 3, because what's happening is this whole unit is being divided by 3. So by multiplying by 3, I'm undoing that operation, and they cancel out because 3 divided by 3 is 1. And that's really the goal, right? So I'm going to multiply this side times 3 too. That leaves me with just the 9x plus 4. Man, we made it 28 minutes and 55 seconds without that iPad disconnecting. If you're new with me, welcome to Learning Liaisons Math Wednesdays, where my iPad disconnects at least 3 times a session, and it usually waits until about that half-hour mark. I've had my tech guy come in and watch these sessions and try to figure it out. We have yet to be able to figure out why the iPad does that. It must be a really special iPad, because it just likes to disconnect sometimes. So here we go. It's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking, 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 it's thinking, 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 thinking. All right, I can share my screen and we'll be rocking and rolling. Okay, so 9x plus 4 equals, now, this right here is where some people get a little tripped up. When I multiply both sides by a value of 3, that 3 goes to everything. It does not just go to this 21. It gets distributed throughout the entire problem. 3 times 12x, 3 times 21. Going to use my handy dandy calculator. 3 times 12, I should have known that, 36x. 3 times 21 equals plus 63. Now, in order to get my x's together, I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 36x from both sides. And I get 9 minus 36 is negative 27x plus 4 equals 63. Now I'm going to do 63 minus 4 because by subtracting 4 from both sides, I cancel it out because remember, my goal is to get x by itself. Negative 27x equals 59. Divide both sides by 27. And this is what, and there goes my pad again. You know, maybe we'll do 3 times in a row and then we won't have to deal with it the rest of the night. And if you were watching the answer choices were off. That's what happens when I try to solve problems in my head. And I'm creating problems in my head is what I'm doing. And so sometimes we get the wrong answer choices, and that's okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this into a fill-in-the-blank problem because the Praxis core does have fill-in-the-blank problems. So we're just going to call this a fill-in-the-blank problem. So 59 divided by negative 27 is going to be, negative 2.185. And we're going to add a little direction that says round to the nearest 100. I don't even know if I spelled that right. Now I've turned this problem into, okay, third time's the charm. We're doing it back to back. I turned this problem into an elementary problem. Why? Because you have to know how to round to the nearest 10th, 100th, 1000th, tens, hundreds, thousands, all of it. And so by doing that, I have opened this problem up to the opportunity for us to explore together. So if I am rounding to the nearest 100th, I'm looking at this problem and I'm thinking to myself, I have negative 2.1851, and I could keep going. It repeats actually, 185, 185. Where is the 100th place? This is the ones. This is the tenths. This is the hundredths. This is the thousandths. This is the 10,000ths, and so on. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100th, I'm rounding to this place, which means I need to look to the right to see, do I have a value that's closer to 2 and 1900ths, or do I have a value that's closer to 2 and 1700ths? That 5 tells me to round up or closer, and I don't want to say up because we're actually in negative values, which is going to pull me further into the negatives, right? So we have to be careful with that language that we use. So because I'm looking at the 5, it's going to round this digit to the 9, which is up because 8, 9, 10, but we're actually going further into the negatives, which is actually pulling it down in value. So if we were to round this off, it would be negative 2.19. Bada bing, bada boom. We are done. All right, let's move on to problem number 6. 2 rectangles are given below. What is the area of the composite shape created by the 2 rectangles? Ooh, this is a good one. All right. I was trying to solve by plugging in answer choices. Chris, if I had the correct answer choice, that would have been an excellent strategy. Solving by plugging in the answer choices, and I'm glad I saw that before I started solving the rest of this. So if I had A, is 2. B is negative 2. C is 0. And D was negative 2.19. Solving by plugging in the answer choices when we have a whole number really is a great strategy, because if I plug in 2 on both sides, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to get something like negative 5 equals 7. Does negative 5 equal 7? It does not. And so because of that, I know that 2 is not a correct answer. But when I plug in negative 2.19 into x, I'm going to get the same thing equals each other. 4 equals 4. 7.3 equals 7.3. Negative a bajillion equals negative a bajillion. Whatever it is, I'm going to get the same thing. And that's my clue that I have found the right answer. Chris, I'm really glad you said that. All right, on to problem 6. This is obviously not a problem we can solve by plugging in answer choices. So we're going to have to solve this the real way. So what is the area of the composite shape? Everybody needs to know what composite shapes are. Everybody needs to understand how to find area. So while we're connecting again, how do we find area of a rectangle? I've got a rectangle. Here's my rectangle. How do I find area? Length times width. That's it. So I know that I'm doing length times width because I'm trying to find out the number of square units in my rectangle. So by doing length times width, I can find that. All the way down, even into 3rd grade, we know that students are going to have to find area of composite shapes. So now they're not doing it with variables, but they're certainly having to do it. 2 ways you can do this. You can do 8x minus 2/3 times 3x, because that is length times width of that rectangle. Then you could do 8x minus 2/3 times 6x minus 9, and that's the length times the width of this rectangle. Then we can add those 2 values together. So that's answer choice number 1. Or you can do this, and I'm going to redraw our image so that you can see. 8x minus 2/3, 3x, 6x minus 9. You can add these 2 values together. So that's going to be 9x minus 9, because 3x plus 6x minus 9 is going to be 9x minus 9. Remember, when we add 2 values together, it is not distributive property. It's only if I were to multiply those 2 values together, because I was trying to find area or something like that. So I'm not multiplying, which means I'm not distributing. So by doing that, now I can do 8x minus 2/3 times 9x minus 9, which is the length of that whole thing, and that will give me the area. 2 different ways to solve this problem, both perfectly acceptable. I am probably going to solve it like this. You might solve it like this. That's okay. They're both acceptable. So let's go ahead and solve this problem. So I'm going to just drag and drop this up here so that I have a little bit more space. And I'm going to multiply these 2 binomials together. If you don't know how to multiply binomials and you are taking a 4 through 8 or a 6 through 12 or a 7 through 12 exam, you've got some work to do. You need to know how to multiply binomials together. So I'm going to distribute this 8x all the way through. 8x times 9x, 8x times negative 9. So 8x times 9x is 72x squared. 8x times negative 9 is minus 72x. Then I'm going to distribute the negative 2/3. Negative 2/3 times 9x is minus 6x. Negative 2/3 times negative 9 is positive 6. I'm going to stop right there. Why am I going to stop right there? In fact, I could have stopped after the first term. Why? Because there is only one answer choice with 72x squared. That, my friends, is a test-taking strategy. And I want you to get comfortable looking at your answer choices while you're solving the problem. Because in this case, there is no reason for me to finish simplifying that. In fact, there was no reason for me to even finish multiplying all of those out, only because I know that as I multiply those out, I only get an x squared in that first term. I'm not going to get any other x squareds because there's no other variables throughout my binomials. If you're not as comfortable with that, finish multiplying it out and then stop and look at your answer choices. There's only one x squared, so nothing else is going to simplify, which means A is my answer. Does that make sense? All right, problem number 7. Which of the following is equivalent to the inequality below? Now, someone specifically asked for inequalities last week. So here is your inequality problem. Again, as we're working together, think about those things that you want to see me solve next week and the weeks following. Let's go ahead and solve this problem. So they've set it up. 3x minus 10 is greater than or equal to 9x plus 8. We've already solved an equation tonight. Let's go ahead and solve this inequality. How do I solve an inequality? I need to get all of my x values together on one side. I need to get all of my constants together somewhere else. So I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides. Now, some of you are going, but wait, I didn't do that. I am going to solve this problem 2 different ways. So in fact, I'm going to write this problem out, and then I'm going to put like a little divider because I do want you to see how this problem is solved 2 different ways. So we're just going to go do, and then I'm going to solve it again over here. I don't know what's going on tonight, to be quite frank. It keeps disconnecting. All right, so I'm going to subtract the 9x from both sides to get it together on that left side of the equation with the blue ink. With the pink ink, I'm going to do exactly the opposite. So with the blue ink, I'm going to subtract the 9x from both sides. So subtract 9x, subtract 9x. So I get negative. It has something to do with my pencil. I just figured it out. So like it kind of like, and then it disconnected. So whatever that was, that's what caused it to disconnect today. And quite frankly, let's try this because I'm sick of it disconnecting. What if I do this? You tell me, does, let me see if I do this. Does this work for you? Like if I solve it like this and you don't get to see my beautiful face, does this work for you? We're going to try that because then it can't disconnect. It doesn't have the possibility of disconnecting. I just might have messy handwriting tonight. That's all. Okay, so subtract 9x from both sides. That's going to cross this off. So I'm going to be left with negative 6x minus 10 is greater than or equal to positive 8, right? Then I'm going to add 10 to both sides because I'm trying to get that x by itself, right? So this crosses off, and I'm left with negative 6x is greater than or equal to 18. How am I going to get that x by itself? I'm going to undo what's being done to this. So I'm going to divide by a negative 6 on both sides. Now, here's where life gets tricky when we're dealing with inequalities. When we are dealing with inequalities, I need you to understand that if I multiply or divide by a negative value on both sides of the equation, the sign flips. So that means I have a positive x over here is less than or equal to negative 3. Now, let's solve it over here going the opposite direction. So some of you said, I didn't subtract the 9x, I subtracted the 3x, and I didn't get the same answer. I promise you did. Let me show you. Subtract 3x from both sides. That gives me negative 10 over here is greater than or equal to 6x plus 8. Now I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. I get 6x. Oh, that turned into a plus sign. Is less than or equal to negative 18. Divide both sides by 6. X negative 3. Negative 3 is greater than or equal to x. Now, that looks different than what we had, right? Let's look at our answer choices. Now, what I do want you to realize is that even though this was a negative and we divided, I did not divide by a negative on both sides. So because I divided by a positive on both sides, it doesn't matter that this is a negative right here. What matters is the value that I'm multiplying or dividing by on both sides. So when we explore our answer choices, I want you to look at this. X is less than or equal to negative 3. Negative 3 is greater than or equal to x. They are the exact same thing. If we are thinking about it in kindergarten terms, which way is the alligator eating? The alligator is eating the negative 3. Which way is the alligator eating? The alligator is still eating the negative 3, which means these are the same answer choices. So when I look at my answer choice, I want the alligator to eat the negative 3, which means A is the correct answer. Any questions about that problem before I turn the screen back down and we solve one more problem tonight? Any other questions about that problem? All right. Let's go into linear equations, and then we will close out for the night. As I'm finishing up this problem, think about what concepts you want to see me solve next week. And in fact, you can start dropping them in the comment box. And when I finish this problem, I'll start adding them to my list. So here we go. I'm just annoyed that I have to do it like this because I can't write straight like this. All right. If the equation of line A is 6x plus 2y equals 8, which of the following equations could represent line B? Here's our problem. This is not in standard form. which means that's not, or that is in standard form. I'm sorry. It's not in slope-intercept form. It's not in point-slope form. So it really doesn't give us a whole lot of information about the line. Standard form is the least useful format that we have, okay? So that said, in order to figure out what important information I know about line A, I need to put this into slope-intercept form or into point-slope form. So slope-intercept form is probably going to be the easiest because slope-intercept form says y equals mx plus b, where m is my slope and b is my y-intercept. And that will give me some really critical information about this line over here. So I'm going to move some things around so that I get y by itself. So I'm going to rewrite this really quickly. I have 6x plus 2y equals 8. I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. But I'm going to keep the x term first because the x term is first in my equation. So I'm going to go 2y equals negative 6x plus 8. Then to get y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 2, which means I'm going to divide everything by 2. And I get y equals negative 3x plus 4. Anybody have any questions as to how I got from here to here? That tells me that was my dog. That tells me that this is a positive 4 and that my slope is negative 3. That makes sense because it's going down. Now, which of the following equations represents line B? Well, if this has a negative slope, I know this is going to have a positive slope. So I'm going to look at my answer choices and I see A has a negative slope and B has a negative slope. So those can't possibly be the answer choices. Now, when I look at C and D, C has a negative y-intercept. D has a positive y-intercept. What kind of y-intercept does letter B have? A negative one, which means, oh, yes, C is my answer because it's the only choice that has a negative y-intercept. All right. What do you want to see me go over next week? I'm going to add it to my next week slide. What do you want to see me go over next week? What are you struggling with where you're like, man, she did not go over X, Y, and Z? I had probability on for this week, but it's just later in the set. So that will be one of the first things we do next week is probability. What else do you want to see me go over next week? Watching the comments. Geometry for 6 through 12. You got it. I will absolutely build some geometry problems for you. What else? And the rain stopped, so that's good. We didn't lose power, so that's always a good thing. Anything else? We actually have time for one more problem because the next problem was a super short problem. So let's solve this problem and then I'll let you go. Again, I'll be watching the comment box for any other things that you want to see me go over next week. This is a quick one. So let's do this one and then we'll go. Which statement about a triangular prism and a rectangular pyramid is not true? So a triangular prism, and I am going to turn it around really quickly so that I can draw this. A triangular prism looks like this. And a rectangular pyramid is going to look like this. Okay. A prism has two identical bases and rectangles that connect those bases. And a pyramid has one base and then triangles that are extending up to connect together. So, only the triangular prism has triangular faces. That is not true, because this has triangular faces, but this also has triangular faces. We already found our answer of not being true. The rectangular pyramid has an equal number of faces as the triangular prism. That is true, because the prism has two bases plus 3 rectangles, 1 for each side. So that equals 5. And then the pyramid has a rectangle, 1, and then it has triangles for each side, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is true. Only the prism has a triangular base. That is true, because the rectangular pyramid is going to have a rectangle base. I'm telling you, mathematicians are not creative when they name things. The rectangular pyramid has an equal number of vertices as the triangular prism. Well, the pyramid has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the prism has 6. So that is not true as well. So this one had multiple answers, which is a possibility on the Praxis, and I'm not sure. I know I don't think Florida has multiple answer choices, but I know Praxis does. Look in your study guide or your blueprint, and they'll tell you if the questions have multiple answers. A lot of times it'll also say select all that apply, so you'll know if you need to select more than one answer. But in that case, we had more than one answer. All right, my friends, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. A. I will see you next week. Have an amazing week. And if there's anything else that you want to see me go over in the upcoming weeks, just drop it in the comments and let me know. Otherwise, have an amazing week.
All right, so wasn't that an amazing session? Now, I know, depending on what exam you have to take, you're like, man, that was great, but she didn't address everything I needed. She focused on all different questions, and I just need elementary, or I just need middle school, I just need high school. Don't worry. Since you're still with us, I've got a special surprise for you. If you use the coupon code, all capital letters, SINK35, that's SINK 35. That will take off 35% off any of our prep courses on our website at the Learning Liaisons. It doesn't have to just be math. It could be anything that you need that we offer. And this is going to be an ongoing deal for you guys who attend these live sessions, because these are great. I'm sure Amy opened your eyes to some new concepts, some new ways to tackle problems, building that confidence. But this is just a smidget of your exam, the concepts on your test. So if you want the comprehensive view with the practice with Amy, with the practice test, with the lessons and the content review, we've got your back on our video boot camps, which all of them feature Amy Sink, your math specialist. So if you want to take advantage of that, the code is SINK35. You can use that at checkout on the learningliaisons.com website. And all that information is on our website as well, and on the bottom of the screen in this video. So we are here to help you. Once again, always remember, it's when you pass, not if you pass. Thank you for joining us again today, and hopefully we'll see you next week too. Talk to you soon.